Hey guys, I started reading The Whole Brain Child because we are expecting our first baby in a couple months, 3 months to go. And so I highly recommend that you read children or parenting books before you get pregnant, because when you get pregnant your brain turns to mush. So it's been taking me weeks to read this book, but I will say I think it's been a really good thing for me to kind of think about. This book kind of has that whole philosophy of your left brain and right brain, which is kind of debated among a lot of people of like, is that even real? Is that pseudoscience? So your left brain is thought to be where your logical processing is, where all of your thinking comes in, and then your right brain is more like your feelings, your emotions, your more animalistic side. And I do think that there's a lot that goes on in your brain that we don't fully know how it works or why it works the way that it does. So reading a book like this, I think, has helped me. Some of the things I highlighted, the more you think about what's going on, the more your kids think about what's going on within themselves, the more they will develop the ability to understand and respond to what's going on in the world within and around them. So you can teach your child to develop empathy, and you've definitely met someone who wasn't taught to develop empathy. Those people are walking around in the world today, and it's very obvious when you meet one, because you're like, have you actually considered anyone except for yourself ever? So it is important to draw their attention to other people's emotions during everyday encounters. You can open up whole new levels of compassion within them and exercise their upstairs brain. So obviously children are notoriously selfish little creatures. That doesn't make them bad. That's just what they're wired to do. They're trying to get their needs met. So it talks about in the book, like, I know growing up in the South, like, you would hear people say like, oh, that child is spoiled, this, that, and the other. They're just doing whatever. They're throwing a fit. They're not always acting from a rational place. They're sometimes acting from a place of, like freak out, like tantrum level stuff. Like they're not in their left brain. They're in their right brain. So that kind of helped me understand it. Like kids aren't necessarily as in control of everything as we are. So that to me, kind of like, if you just know that can make you better at parenting, because you're not trying to get them to think from a level of a 31-year-old woman. It's like a baby or a toddler or a 5-year-old isn't going to have the same perspective that we have. It says, consider what you are modeling with your own behavior. The examples you set for good and for bad will significantly impact the way your child's upstairs brain develops. So they are always watching you. I know that about children. I've seen enough children to know. And then at times you can simply explain the concept. I know you're mad you didn't get to go on the sleepover with your sister. Doesn't seem fair, does it? Let's go ride our bikes and talk about it. Sometimes just moving your body can help your brain feel like things are going to be okay. So it gives a lot of like practical tips about things that you can do to manage their expectations and their feelings. One thing I thought was kind of interesting as well is that when a child has a negative experience, the parent's first reaction can sometimes be to like push it down or be like, oh, it's okay. Do you want to get ice cream? Oh, it's going to be fine. Like, dust yourself off. But the child needs to process what happens within themselves. That is literally how we learn to process our feelings and our information. And I know a lot of times as a child, my parents would just kind of tell me like, oh, it's not that bad, like walk it off. Like, they were trying to toughen me up, I think, but there were a lot of experiences that did not get processed that should have gotten processed that now I'm still dealing with as a 31-year-old. So that's just food for thought with raising your children in a way that give them the time and give them the courtesy of being able to walk through an experience and process it with them. And then it also gives some tips on how you can incorporate these things within yourself, which I think is important. It says, we don't want our children to hurt, but we also want them to do more than simply get through their difficult times. We want them to face their troubles and grow from them. Denial of our emotions isn't the only danger we face when we rely too heavily on our left brain. We can also become too literal, leaving us without a sense of perspective, where we miss the meaning that comes from putting things in context. So you'll see those people who don't understand nuance. You're seeing that a lot more, honestly, I think, is people who take everything as a black and white. They don't understand where gray lies, and they can't like look at a situation and think like multiple perspectives. They only think about like what their perspective is. So that's another drawback if you raise your kids without teaching them nuance. Like, they just go on to become not very good partners and not very good people in society. So no shade to them, but anyways, there's a lot of tips in this. I'm probably gonna do more studying this, but for right now, my brain, as a person who's 7 months pregnant, is having trouble balancing all these ideas. But I think that this book is going to be really useful. It's one that I've already made multiple notes in and highlighted in, and I'm super excited to say that I'm preparing for my child in a way that makes sense for them emotionally and logically.